Creating Schools of Recovery was a big Brum project testing a partnership model with theatre at its heart. The model was tested across multiple year groups in 6 West Midlands primary schools and grew out of the experience of the COVID-19 crisis and the subsequent need for all kinds of recovery for children, teachers, the culture of schools, their communities, and for the company itself. As part of the project, we created a commission of expert evaluators who each looked at different aspects of our emerging partnership model. The project was supported by the Paul Hamlyn Foundation. The project model followed a simple 4-step process where teachers experienced and responded to a taster of the story we were using with the children. They then observed and tuned in to children's responses to the story when we performed it to them. The children and the teachers worked together afterwards, sometimes quite briefly, based on how they had responded to the work. And finally, the teachers had the opportunity to reflect on the experience as a whole. We shared the storybook and film with the teachers, who shared it with the children.
Hello, I'm Kate. I'm here for the story. Is that why you're here? Do you like stories?
The children finished the story for themselves. Some children had never done this before. The story explored whether people say what they mean and mean what they say. It followed objects, a coin and some scrolls, from ancient China to the present day. The teachers created planning from it, and children made their own scrolls for future generations. Ripped took the form of a series of workshops centred on the story of Rosie, a troubled girl who has ripped a dictionary and placed it outside her head teacher's office. The children were invited to give advice to the head teacher about how he should best help her meet her real needs and wants.
And at the heart of Rosie's dilemma, and where we began with the young people, was the question, or asking the question, what's the difference between need and want? And then the whole story revolved around trying to understand that difference and what Rosie needed and wanted, because they're human things.
Some of the children wrote letters to the head teacher about Rosie's plight. Members of the evaluation team looked at the letters and what they told them about those children's needs.
So I guess there's something really interesting for teachers in that process of imagination, that when a child is really immersed in a kind of fictional context, and is really trying to work things through, that in some ways allowing them that autonomy is really important. As evaluators, we were really interested in this idea about what happens in Big Brum's work beyond the school gate. Is there any reach? Does anything that happen in the kind of context of the work that they're doing, whether the children themselves feel that they're able to reach out and talk and express things to people who maybe are outside of education? But what is really important is not to lose the fact that this was a beautiful imaginative task that was set by a company that is really skilled at getting children to think in a fictional context.
Minotaur by Chris Cooper used the classic Greek myth to explore what makes a monster, a king, a hero. The programme toured to Year 4 children in 2023 as part of a training and work placement for applied theatre students at Birmingham City University. This experience informed a further placement in May 2024. The evaluators used this to explore curriculum and pedagogy.
I was researching the theatre and education program Minotaur from Big Brum, and what I researched is how this program relates to the school curriculum. Now, from the very beginning, when I saw the program or read the text of the performance, I was surprised by a fundamental change happening in the story. What happened there is that Theseus was presented as a villain and Minotaur as having human qualities of a child. At some point, for example, he's playing with a toy. But the important thing here for us is that Big Brum is challenging the story, opening gaps to the story, to reinterpret it, to give the opportunity to children, the students, to reinterpret the story in a modern way in our world today. What does it mean to be a monster? What does it mean to be a hero?
For example, there is a scene in the Minotaur where the Minotaur, the monster, is playing with a ship. This ship has a sail and there is some sort of symbol on the sail. And while the facilitator also asks questions about what's actually happening there, she also asks questions about what it feels to be possibly in this labyrinth. Why is this monster playing with this ship in the heart of the labyrinth? And then she also asked about the symbol which one of the participants noticed and what the symbol looked like. And the participant said it looked like an eye watching the monster. So the facilitator asked the participants, what would this eye that's on the sail of the ship see if it looked at this monster? Now this opens a space that participants can enter and relate themselves to the whole situation and the narrative in a very imaginative way.
Rumpelstiltskin took the classic Grimm's fairy story to Year 3 children, supported by props and a simple stage set. The adaptation by Richard Holmes invited the children to think, in an age-appropriate way, about power, property, control, and the value of a child's life. Within the project, we use this as an opportunity to evaluate the impacts on children with special educational needs and disabilities, on teacher development, and to raise questions about teacher mentoring.
So I was looking at the impact of Big Brum's work on children who are labelled as having special educational needs and disabilities. And what I noticed about Big Brum's work is that the principles they work to with regard to inclusivity, collaboration, is a fantastic starting point for young people with special needs.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Taylor.
And I'm Emma Davis.
And our role as evaluators was to consider Big Brum Schools of Recovery project model with a focus on teacher development. Throughout, teachers could consider aspects such as student engagement, behaviour management, questioning techniques, and overall drama as a pedagogical approach, as well as reflecting on their own practice and how they conduct themselves.
All teachers in the project were able to observe sessions in order to consider strategies and techniques that they could have used to support their practice. However, many of the teachers involved in the project did not go on to utilise some of those strategies and techniques in their own practice.
And our evaluation highlighted several key themes. They were priority and buy-in given to the project, teacher workload, the environment, and teacher reflection. The evaluation also highlighted the potential need for specific teacher training that supports drama as a pedagogical approach, whilst taking into consideration the workloads and pressures of a classroom teacher.
So we've been looking at mentoring in the project with Big Brum. And by mentoring, we're talking about the ways in which Big Brum, as facilitators, are working with the children in school. We've come up with this idea of an informal mentoring process, a way in which the teachers can look at and deconstruct the work that Big Brum have been doing with their children. And by looking at the way they are able to free themselves from the school curriculum, they can pass this on to the teachers by finding ways in the school day with the materials that they feel they have to teach to look at the way that story can be used to explore the very essence of humanity.
Barbia Sohal and former head teacher Gilroy Brown investigated the project's positive impact on young migrants. They noted that it offered space for empathy, for considering belonging and relationships, for developing children's sense of agency, and for exploring how children can resolve conflict situations. They concluded that the use of drama through the project enabled the pupils to access and enjoy a form of cultural capital that they otherwise would most likely not have experienced. Finally, we invited Dr. Chris Bolton to take an overview of the evaluators' findings as a whole.
So the Creating Schools of Recovery project showed me, as one of the evaluators, some really interesting findings. Three sort of themes emerged out of all the different evaluators' reports. One of the themes was about how Big Brum create these safe spaces, and actually they also create these braver spaces. A second theme that emerged for me was around sort of teacher identity and teacher practice, and we know that teachers have faced significant challenges through pandemic context. But one of the things that have really strongly resonated through all of the different evaluators' reports is that teachers are really coming to understand some of the work and how Big Brum operates, and in some instances teachers are able to adapt some of the pedagogical approaches that Big Brum adopt in their practice. The third and final theme that emerged also from the evaluators' evaluations was this idea around student agency, student voice, and the work of Big Brum really helps young people to develop this sense of agency, this sense of empowerment, and the child is always central to the work.
Big Brum is learning from this project in the development of schools of recovery across North Solihull.